And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of NB8 right here on Wood TV Plus. We missed you all. Sorry we did not have an episode for you last week. Things kind of got in the way, but we're so glad to be back with another recap of the Detroit Pistons. We'll obviously be going over the state of the NBA as well, and we've got some fun things planned for the holiday season as well. AJ Evans, of course, joining us once again. AJ, so glad to have you back. Again, missed you last week as well, but, glad we're back together again.
Of course, Phil. Thank you for having me. Like I always say, this is the best time of the year.
Absolutely. Especially with all the Christmas Day games ahead. We're going to kind of go over some of those games and kind of also take a look back at Christmases of past and talk about some of our favorite NBA memories. Again, one of the biggest NBA holidays really is around this Christmas time. But we do want to begin with talking about some of the big news out of the NBA, namely being, again, this is a couple of weeks ago at this point, but a streak that we never thought would ever be broken was broken. LeBron James had a streak, an unbelievable streak of scoring at least 10 points in every single game that he played in. That streak lasted 1,297 games, but it was broken just a few games ago for the Lakers. AJ, I don't think we can really overstate just the impact and legacy that LeBron James is going to leave behind. But again, were you surprised to see this streak actually break? It felt like something that we would never see be broken because, you got to think LeBron, 10 points, they kind of go in the same sentence together almost.
Yeah, those two things have been synonymous with each other for as long as we've been alive, Phil, almost. Like LeBron, he's been the standard of excellence in the NBA. So I was a little surprised, but hey, he still had like 11 assists in that game. So
he still made the pass to win that game too.
Yeah. I mean, he's still at his age. He's still controlling games. He's still doing what he does best, and he's still contributing to winning in a huge way every single night. So yeah, it was a little strange to see. I guess it's just another sign. I think it might be the clearest sign we've gotten of the fact that he's slowing down and that he really is in like the twilight of his career. But nonetheless, he's still going to be a productive NBA player from now until whenever he decides to hang it up. So it made me a little sad, but it's still cool to see. I think some people freaked out a little bit too much. The Lakers are doing fine. Yeah. He's doing more than fine. I'm not too concerned about it.
Well, I think the freak out does stem from what you just said, is that it is kind of that first and really main a component of Father Time kind of stepping in to LeBron's legacy, because we've seen it. He's in his 40s. He's played 20 plus years in the NBA. I mean, he has done it all. And, you're like, what else can this guy do? Well, again, we just kind of saw that happen just a few games ago. Just so everybody knows, the first game that started this streak, again, that 1,297 games straight of at least 10 points for LeBron, that started on January 6, 2007. So we're what are we in? December of 2025. Wow. So gosh, I mean, I can't do the math right now. I'm not even going to try and embarrass myself, but we're looking at years and years and years of just dominance from LeBron.
He couldn't keep it going, Phil, for 2 more years, make it 20 years in 2027.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but again, it's still a great moment for LeBron in the sense that he can look back at all of those games and say, wow, I really did this entire streak. But again, maybe he can start a new streak. Let's see if he can beat this next one. Maybe play until his 70s even.
Oh, yeah. 2037.
Right. All right. Some other news in the NBA. We spent a lot of time talking about Chris Paul announcing that he was going to be retired, AJ, when that news first came down from Chris Paul. But since then, I mean, things have not been great for the Clippers. Yeah. And of course, Chris Paul. Of course, the Clippers, we know, one of the bottom barrel teams in the NBA right now, really struggling. And then the Clippers decide that, you know what, Chris Paul, we know we brought you in at the beginning of this year to kind of give you one last hurrah in one of your, most memorable towns that you've played in. But actually, I think we're good on him. And they have announced that they've released him. What kind of, I can't imagine any situation you'd be in where you're already struggling. You've got a guy who, name alone, will drag people into the stadiums to watch him and potentially see one of his last games ever. And you're like, no, we're good. We're past this. I do not know what the Clippers are thinking. Have not known what the Clippers have been thinking really all season long.
Yeah, this whole situation has been really bizarre, and it kind of encapsulates where this franchise is right now, which is just in a really odd space, if we're being completely honest. The whole thing has been confusing. From the beginning, Chris Paul texted in the middle of the night or posted on social media that he was being sent home. Everyone was confused by that. Clippers came out with a statement that really didn't add much context besides the fact that they said they had kind of severed ties with him and would indeed be sending him home. And since then, there have just been a variety of reports coming from both sides. There was, at one point, I don't know if you saw, Phil, a report that Tyronn Lue and Chris Paul were not speaking with each other. Lue came out and said, no, they were indeed speaking with each other. Ramona Shelburne actually did a great piece for ESPN. I think it went out today, but she did a good article that kind of contextualized it all and talked about the fact that the Clippers deemed Chris Paul to be too disruptive at this point in their season, and which confused me because I
Disrupted how? I mean, it's already bad.
Yeah, and there are examples of him being disruptive where him trying to galvanize the team or talk in depth about losses. I don't understand how somebody can be disruptive when they're trying to contribute to winning. And Chris Paul has always been a vocal leader. He's always been he's always been a leader. He's always been one of the more prominent voices in any locker room he's ever been in, from I'm sure the time he picked up a basketball to now. That has not changed. It will not change. And I don't think he was in any way abusing the fact that he's a future Hall of Famer. I don't think he was, providing a bad example for the young players in that locker room, although this locker room has its own veterans, if we're being honest. But it just doesn't make much sense to me. And I think it leads me to a bigger issue, and I think a bigger struggle that many players deal with, which is they struggle to go out on their own terms, and they don't necessarily get that right. And many athletes don't. The majority of athletes aren't afforded that luxury. They're not able to go out on their own terms. They have to stop playing because they're hurt or they're not good enough or whatever the case may be. But Chris Paul has a right to do that. I think he's earned that at this point. He's put in so much time. He's a guy who's been in the league for 20 years now. It really is sad to see, especially given the fact that I felt like he brought the Clippers back to relevancy for our generation. Nobody was talking about the Clippers before that. Yeah. And yeah, it's really sad. This is a guy who's probably going to have his jersey retired, who should have his jersey retired by this franchise. And to call him into a hotel room in the middle of the night or at 11 p.m. and say, hey, you're kind of being too disruptive right now. Things are bad, but you're kind of making things a little worse. We're going to send you home. I don't think that's right. I don't. So it's been really sad to see. I do hope he's able to land with another team pretty soon. This is going to be his final season, as he's announced. So I hope he does get some sense of closure. Hopefully a team making the playoffs can pick him up and he can at least have that ride and enjoy it. But I think he's also more than capable of contributing to a team if he so chooses to be. But regardless of whatever that is, he can be an extension of the coaching staff. He can be a rotational player. Whatever he chooses to do, I think he'll thrive in. But it really is just a sad and bizarre situation. And I think this is just another example of the Clippers franchise handling things really, really poorly.
Our final topic in this news cycle, that being the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were on a 16-game winning streak before it was snapped in their last game against the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Cup. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the fact that the Thunder, I mean, let's look at the Thunder's dominance so far this season. They are 24-2. On the season right here, on pace to beat the 2016, 2017 Warriors, who won 73 games for an NBA record, most regular season wins. Again, it stinks to watch a team in the Western Conference kind of beat up on your favorite team. But just watching the Thunder play, I don't even think they'll lose 5 games. It is like their last game, which was a loss to the Spurs. I mean, they needed a great performance from Wemby, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle. They needed all these other elements to get them there. I mean, I don't know who else is even capable of beating the Thunder again. I mean, they're only at 2 losses, and we're almost at Christmas now.
Yeah, I mean, 73-9 was like unfathomable when it happened. It's crazy too, because this season is so long. It's so long and extensive. It really does take a toll on you, and you need all of the stars to align. You need for guys to stay healthy. You have to still, manage your minutes properly. Everyone has to do a phenomenal job and just not only like delegating responsibilities, but just balancing everything every single night. And I mean, we're a quarter of the way through the season, and the Thunder have done it. They've done it remarkably well. They've done it as well as anybody has in NBA history. If that continues, it really will be a season for the ages for them. But, I mean, their dominance right now is unprecedented. Just to see a team that is this young that is also this selfless, that plays basketball the way that they do on both ends of the floor. It's been a treat to see. There's a lot of really good basketball. There's so much talent. I think the league is in as good of a place as it's ever been. But this Thunder team, I think they're really the epitome of that, and of how high of a level basketball has gotten to.
Right. I mean, not since those older Warriors teams, or really even with the KD Warriors. I mean, I have not seen a team play this well from top to bottom. I mean, even those Warriors teams, outside, they had to get a lot of help from some no-name guys, or they had a very small bench. This Thunder team, I mean, they play 12 guys on a regular basis. Yeah. They were winning most of these games without their arguably second best player in Jalen Williams, and now that he's back, I mean, that just adds an extra fold to this. I know there's a lot of talk, especially on social media right now, about the Thunder, and there's a lot of hate driven towards them because they think that maybe they flop a little bit too much, or maybe they get a little bit too many calls, or maybe they get to play a little bit more aggressive defense compared to other teams in the NBA. But I mean, if you watch a full Oklahoma City Thunder game, there are very few things I find wrong with the way they play basketball. I mean, when they're playing the Grizzlies, I hate them. I don't want them to. I think everything they're doing is wrong. But an objective matchup, it's just such a beautiful brand of basketball to watch. And again, I think the issue that a lot of people are having is the fact that we don't know who's going to maybe beat this Thunder team. And I think that is scary to some people, because you think about when the Warriors were winning all those games. That was something that people talked about. They were like, well, it's not fair to the other teams because they've got all these superstars. Well, then we saw the Cavaliers beat them in the finals, and we realized, oh, this team can be beat. Yes, the Oklahoma City Thunder this season have lost 2 games, but I mean, I don't think one of them was to the Trailblazers. So I don't know if there's a team built for a 7-game series to compete with the Thunder. I think that is scary for a lot of people.
For sure. And I'm not sure if there is either, Phil, but that's the beautiful thing about the postseason and about this game. We're going to find out. And regardless of whether they can be beat or not, this team still has its weaknesses, and those things will be exposed. Now, those weaknesses are very slight, but they're going to have to go through a very competitive Western Conference to get back to the finals. And so when you factor in the road that they have ahead of them, the fact that they're getting an opposing team's best game every night for the rest of this season, coupled with, like I said, an extensive postseason, if they make it that far and get all the way back to the NBA mountaintop, you got to toss your hands up and give them credit. You got to give credit where credit is due, because they really are a phenomenal franchise, and Sam Presti has done an incredible job building this team. He's always done an excellent job, I think, of retooling. The Thunder haven't had too many years where they've just been down.
No, right.
They just really haven't. They've always found a way to remain competitive and to remain relevant in some capacity, but he's done an incredible job of just building this team up, and he's kept them afloat. And I mean, he's just made some incredible deals. The fact that they're probably going to have another lottery pick this year is insane. And
that might be the unfair part that I'm agreeing with people about.
It might be, but hey, you have the Clippers to thank for that. So
exactly.
I don't know what to say, Phil.
Get ready for some awesome basketball, I guess. I mean, these playoffs are going to be great. I know we've still got a ton of regular season. We've still got the All-Star game. Still got Christmas Day games, which are going to be a lot of fun. Still got the NBA Cup even. But I think, with the playoffs, I think I'm just very excited to see how these teams look to maybe try and match up against Oklahoma City. Real quick, though, AJ, do you think that they beat the 73-game winning mark? Might be too early to tell. I think they do. Personally, I'm going to go out there and go on a limb. I think they potentially get to 75. I think that is their goal. I think they like a nice round, even 75. I think that's what they're trying to go for.
Okay, I'll be pessimistic. I think they can. I think they very well can. I don't think they will, just given the fact that somebody could turn their ankle tomorrow night and this whole thing could be a wrap. So I'll say no, just given the fact that I think injuries are bound to happen. I think it'll also come down to, and this is something that really isn't talked about that much, Phil, is guys choose to play through certain things and they don't play through other things. So if, I don't know, I don't want to put any player out there, but if someone does turn their ankle and the staff decides, hey, it's best that you sit out for 2 weeks and the Thunder hit a slump, or even if the ball stops going down, because teams do go through shooting slumps throughout the course of the season. Like I said, this whole thing could blow up. But having said that, I still do think they win 65-plus games, which is incredible in and of itself. I mean, that's still a terrific year. I probably have them pushing, I would say, 69 wins.
Yeah.
60. I think 69 wins is I think that's their probably medium, and I think they could win a few more, lose a couple more.
Right. Yeah. No. Hopefully injuries don't get in the way. You want them to leave it all out on the court. If they end up not winning the 75 games, you want it to be out on the court, not because somebody was out.
For sure.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting to see. And of course, the Thunder being the top team in the West, we have to talk about the top team in the East now. That's still being your Detroit Pistons. They are currently 21-5 on the season, which would already be making headlines if it weren't for the fact that the Thunder have been dominating as much as they have. Real quickly, want to go over just their past couple of games. Again, we have 2 weeks of games to kind of go through. Obviously, the NBA Cup kind of helped us out a little bit, giving the Pistons a little bit of a break, so not as many games, but it all began with a loss at Milwaukee, 113-109 against the Bucks. Giannis really only played 4 minutes in that game, so you thought maybe Detroit was kind of in line for a big win. Ended up getting outscored by 11 points in that fourth quarter. Blew an 18-point lead that they had in that game. So again, pretty gnarly stuff to see if you're a Pistons fan, but they bounced back the next game against the Blazers, winning 112-116. Again, great bounce back win. You had 6 guys in double figures, almost had 7. Isaiah Stewart finished with 9 in that game. Then they got some revenge against the Bucks. They won 124-112. They had a better job of keeping the lead this time, and 31 to assists to 15 turnovers. It's fine, I guess, but it's still something. Those turnovers still really plaguing the Pistons.
Yes.
Then a big win against the Atlanta Hawks, 142-115. Beef Stew led all Pistons scores with 17. Anytime we get to shout out Isaiah Stewart, I'm going to do it. They actually outscored Atlanta 35-19 in that third quarter, which really busted the game wide open, led them to a big win. And also, the Pistons tied an NBA record in that game.
Yep.
They had 7 players in double figures in that one, and 12 players who played for the Pistons, who suited up, wore a uniform, actually checked into the game, scored at least 7. That tied an NBA record. And then we had Monday night's game, which was a really great game with Detroit coming out ahead of the Boston Celtics, 112-105. Let's talk about Jaylen Brown a little bit, because he seems to really like playing the Pistons this year. He had another 30-point performance. Again, just it was a little close going into that fourth quarter, even really late in the fourth quarter, but Detroit being able to pull away. Cade finished with 32, 4, and 10. A great seeing that from the star of the Detroit Pistons for sure. AJ, all through all those games, obviously Detroit still winning most of them and still dominating this season. Was there anything in particular that you really liked from what you saw these past 2 weeks from Detroit?
Phil, I think I've liked the balance that I've seen. Seems like everyone, is starting to come together even more. I think everybody is getting a greater understanding of their roles at this point in the year. And I think the intensity, I feel like, has gone up a bit. Seems like they're making more of an effort, I think, to play out and transition a little bit more, which has been nice to see. I think we saw that a lot last night against Boston. We really saw this team try and push the tempo a little bit. One of my favorite plays, I think, of the season happened last night. Jalen Duren got a steal on Jaylen Brown, dove to the floor. As he hit the deck, he tossed it to Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson located Cade Cunningham sprinting up the floor. Cade took it and fed it to, I can't remember who. Oh, Tobias. He got the ball to Tobias Harris, who slammed it. Yeah. And so that play happened within the course of 2 seconds, and like 4 guys touched the ball. And it was remarkable to me to see, like I said, how this team has just continued, I think, to up the intensity. And I feel like to continue to find new things to play for. When you're winning, sometimes I feel like young teams can get bored and get a little lackadaisical. And I think the Pistons have been guilty of that in some of these games, Phil, like we've talked about. There have been a lot of blown leads in some of these games. There have been some wins they've had where they've blown leads. And we've talked about the importance of playing 4 really good quarters. I think they're making a concerted effort to really get to that. So it's been cool to see. One thing I think that I've continued to track is the Pistons are still fighting to get calls, Phil. Yeah. They're still fighting to get them. We saw Cade get a tech last night. JB has gotten a couple of techs this season. I think they're frustrated with the fact that they don't feel like they're getting the respect that they probably rightfully deserve. But you and I talked about it off air. There's a balance, because I think a lot of good teams maybe get calls that maybe that they're not inclined to get, but that they're able to fight for and that they've earned just through dominance over a few seasons. And the Pistons are getting to that point, but they're not quite there yet. This is their second really good year. And they've taken an even greater step this year, to the point where they feel they have the upper hand in every matchup, which I think is new for everybody, including them. So that's been interesting to see. But nonetheless, I've really liked everything I've seen from this team. I'd really like to see this team continue to finish better at the rim. I think that's something to nitpick a little bit. I feel like Asar, as of late, has kind of struggled to finish at the rim, but I'm not too concerned with it. I think he's still naturally so gifted, especially when he's around the basket. He can put English on the ball. He can do so many different things, but I'd like to see him just concentrate a little bit more on that. Getting in that restricted area is really tough because you have 7-footers trying to take your head off. You have guys trying to take charges.
Yeah.
So you have to really, find a balance, and it's not as easy as it looks on TV. So, I've really liked everything. They're still doing really well, still have a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. They've been remarkable. So I just hope that they can keep it up and everybody can continue to stay healthy.
Right. Well, I mean, but back to the getting calls aspect to this whole thing. Again, Detroit is blowing teams out at this point. I mean, the way that they've been this year, and I hate to keep bringing up the past because we don't want to focus too much on the negatives, but you'd think just 2 years ago where this team was to where they are now. Obviously, an incredible turnaround, and that does kind of play in, I guess. I don't think the NBA is still kind of used to Detroit being this good. I think that they're still waiting. They still maybe associate, the blue, red, and white as being, a middling Eastern Conference team and the talk of the NBA right now, which they are. So I think, again, it's just something that it will come with time. You got to think that they were playing in Boston. Boston won the finals 2 years ago. They still have guys on their team that were part of that championship team that have earned that respect. And I think, really in the next couple of weeks, maybe after the All-Star break, Detroit will start kind of benefiting from that respect a little bit more, because if they're able to take their lead in the Eastern Conference all the way past the All-Star break and enjoy the All-Star segment, maybe they have a couple of guys make some of those teams and everything like that. You got to think that the NBA is going to really start taking notice as the playoffs get closer and closer, and kind of realizing that, okay, we should be getting used to saying JB's name. We should be used to seeing Cade maybe get a little bit extra fiery. We should see maybe Isaiah Stewart, manhandling some people down on the block a little bit more. I think that way, if they're at least expecting it a little bit more, that'll go into giving Detroit at least a more fair whistle against some of these other big-time teams that have earned that respect from NBA refs. For sure.
And I think also, too, I think some officials have been a little surprised at how much these teams advocate for themselves. Like JB, Cade, Jalen Duren, they bark at refs, and I love it, but when they don't feel like a game is being officiated fairly, they let you know. And I know for a fact some of these officials are probably asking, who do these guys think they are? But, I mean, they're exactly who they think they are.
Right.
And they're proving that every night. So, like you said, I do hope around the All-Star break things begin to turn a little bit, especially when a couple of these guys make the All-Star game, because they very well should. But yeah, they're just going to continue to do so. And the playoffs is going to be an entirely different beast. But we're going to really get to see, because I felt like last year they didn't get that respect. And I felt like that was really clear across the league. If you saw the Pistons play against the Knicks, you saw the varying degrees of who the officials respected.
The haves and the have-nots a little bit. Yeah.
Correct. And so this upcoming postseason will be another test and another indicator of that for sure.
Right. All right. Well, Detroit, again, still tops of the East right now at 21-5. Their next game is this Thursday. They're playing in Dallas. AJ, who do you like in that one? And how does Detroit kind of keep that going? We just saw Cooper Flagg score 42 against the Jazz. He's the youngest player to do to reach that feat. Do you think maybe he continues it going? How does Detroit kind of match up well against Dallas?
For sure. I mean, I think Detroit matches up well against anybody with the way that they're playing right now. Like I said, they're a super physical team.
Right.
I want to continue to see how they push the pace. I think I mentioned this earlier, but they've climbed now to top 5 in the league in pace. So I want to see them continue to just push the tempo, use their defense as an asset into their offense. But I think they match up really well. Cooper Flagg has seemed to have turned a corner. He seems like he's playing really well, and he's taking another step. I know it was a struggle for him, I think, just in terms of picking his spots. And also, too, Phil, what we talked about at the start of this year, I was worried about him being out there fending for himself. It's kind of exactly what the season has turned into a little bit. But he's a super skilled and talented player nonetheless. I've been impressed with him every time I've seen him. I think individually he'll probably have a pretty good game. I know Detroit's defense is going to be a test for him. So, I mean, even if he does struggle, this is one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, and he's still finding his way. But I think the Pistons will take care of that one. I do. But things could happen. We've seen the Pistons build really big leads and collapse a little bit and go silent for prolonged stretches. So I think that's probably what I'm really looking forward to seeing, because I think Detroit will probably get off to a good start, and I'm sure at some point they will take a commanding lead, but if they're able to maintain it, that's another challenge in and of itself. It's kind of the game within the game. So I think I'm looking to see how they handle that for sure.
Yeah, no, and obviously it's great to see Cooper Flagg kind of reach that potential, even if it's just briefly in that one game against the Jazz. You know, again, he's a guy that had so much hype around him coming into this league. And I mean, you know, anybody that's under that much pressure, you can tell might be having a little bit of difficulty adjusting to the next level. But good to see that he's kind of making that way. And again, Detroit only gets 2 chances at Dallas every single year in the regular season. So you use these chances to actually see Cooper Flagg against your favorite team. You know, you try to make a television showing of it. So should be a good game. Very excited for that one. Of course, we'll be bringing you a full recap next time we're here on NB8, which will be for a few weeks, but we'll get into that a little bit later. AJ, I want to shift gears now to something fun that we've been planning for the past couple of weeks now, and that being the holiday wish list for the NBA. Off camera, AJ and I spun a random wheel of all the NBA teams. We took out the Pistons for obvious reasons. We talk enough about them. But we wanted to kind of go over, you know, what might be on some of these other teams' wish lists going into the holiday season. AJ, we each got 3 teams. I'll let you go first with your first team. Pick whoever you want. Say the team that you had and what you think might be at the top of their holiday list this year.
All right. Okay, so Phil, my first team was the Portland Trail Blazers. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Portland right now. Chauncey Billups is still being investigated. But there have been, I think, some bright spots. We talked about a little bit. Shaedon Sharpe has taken a leap this year. Deni Avdija has had a really good year. I think for me, the thing that I would like to see for this franchise, the one thing I would put on their wish list is a bona fide leader for this next generation, for this next era. I don't think Chauncey is going to be that guy. It doesn't look like really there's a way out of this. And so I think with that, they're going to need to find some new direction and some true consistency. It seems like Portland has sort of been devoid of that for a while now, and I think they could really use a solid head coach, somebody who's really not only passionate about working with young players, but who can really just get this franchise back to relevancy, because it's been a struggle. And Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, I think carried this franchise for many, many years. They made this team a contender in a really competitive Western Conference, but they need someone who can get them back to that. And so that's what I hope they're able to get, and that's what I have at the top of my wish list for the Blazers.
Well, I know one guy who is currently looking for a job who might be available in the next couple of months to lead that. I mean, could you imagine Chris Paul lead? He would be a great coach. We see so many times a lot of players kind of move into TV and be the analyst and everything, and there are a lot of great guys that do that. But I think if you can kind of move from the NBA straight from the end of the bench playing to the front of the bench coaching, I think that really goes to show. And I think Chris Paul would be one of the top guys to maybe do that. So that's just an option out there.
Yeah, for sure. And he's got such a good basketball brain. He's going to be able to do whatever he wants. If he wants to be a general manager, it might take a little bit longer, but he can get to that point too. Yeah. So whatever he wants to do, he'll be great at.
Right. All right. Well, that's a great first start to this. My first team is the Sacramento Kings. And again, we wanted to have as much fun with this as possible. So I started with the Kings because this one really isn't that fun, because it is kind of serious. They need better momentum management. And what I mean by that is you look at where the Kings were since the 07-08 season. They had not made the playoffs since then until 2023, when they just got this band of really solid role players to mesh well with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, who they had on their team. They ended up taking the Warriors to 7 games, and the Warriors had just won the finals the year before. So they had all this momentum. Sure, they lost in the first round, to the Warriors, but did anybody have more fun that season than the Sacramento Kings? They had Light the Beam. I mean, everything was looking up for them.
Light the Beam.
Everything was, right on track, right where they were going to want to be. And then all of a sudden, everything just kind of fell down. AJ, you had this great line when we first started this show, and I've been echoing it ever since, that you can't skip the steps to success. And I think it was a case of Sacramento not having any productivity for, years and years and years. And then all of a sudden, they're taking the reigning champs to 7 games in the first round of the playoffs, and they've got all this momentum going, and then it all just fell right back down to earth. Ended up trading De'Aaron Fox, ended up losing some guys, ended up trying to bring in new guys to replace them. It all not working out. You ended up getting rid of the coach that brought you there, and Mike Brown, hiring Doug Christie. There's issues right now between the front office, the coaching staff, the players, everything. Again, I think what the Kings need more than anything else, and I'm hoping that they're asking Santa for this year, it would be to have some better momentum management, or maybe have somebody in there to be like, okay, guys, let's calm down a little bit and let's get back down to earth. Let's focus on what the task is at hand, and then save some time to celebrate when you are actually accomplishing things again. There's nothing wrong with having fun while you're a middling team and kind of trying to take that next step, but again, you don't want to just let that become the whole goal, is to make the first round of the playoffs. The goal for any NBA team, no matter how bad you are, should not be to make the playoffs. It should be to win the finals.
Yeah, for sure. No, Phil, I think you've made some excellent points. I mean, so do you think they've got truly ahead of themselves?
Yes. I think you got to think that the Kings were, again, another team that was just kind of stuck in mediocrity. I mean, you had guys years. Like, DeMarcus Cousins, who, at one point in time was the best center in the NBA.
Yes.
And then you completely failed that. You never got him even to the playoffs, let alone to, I don't think they even had a winning record or a 500 record in any of those seasons either. Yeah. Then you had this one magical run, and instead of kind of retaining that and maybe trying to add an extra piece, or maybe shift this little bit in the offense or something like that, you kind of let it get to your head, and the Light the Beam memes, that was kind of just taking over social media and everything like that. I think the goal became to have a funny viral moment at the end of the games than necessarily win these basketball games and kind of compete for a title.
For sure. Yeah, no, and it's been so weird, Phil, too, because this franchise has been known for being really dysfunctional, but they haven't had a shortage of talent across the board. They haven't. They've had Isaiah Thomas, Tyreek Evans. We talked about him at length off air, Phil. DeMarcus Cousins. There have been so many individual stars that have come through Sacramento who, for whatever reason, the franchise just hasn't been able to build around. So, yeah, no, it's tough times once again in Sacktown, for sure. Definitely.
All right, well, let's try and stay a little bit more positive. AJ, who's your next team that you have on their holiday list?
Yeah, so my second team is the Atlanta Hawks, and Phil, it really pains me to do this, but I think the Hawks need to ask Santa for a sizable return for trading Trae Young. I do.
Really?
I do, because, and it's not because of I think Trae Young is still a terrific fit for the Hawks, and I think that organization and him have had some great moments together. They're once again one of those teams that we talked about. They got a little ahead of themselves. They made the conference finals, and it didn't seem like they felt they had or needed to do more with their roster when they did. I think they overperformed and outperformed the expectations for that year, and since then, it's been a rough road. But in the midst of that, Jalen Johnson has emerged. Phil, this year he's averaging 22, 10, and 8. And I think it's fair to say you have a certified star you can build around if you so choose to do so. But having said that, it doesn't seem like the Hawks really want to commit to Trae Young. It seems like he's always at the top of trade rumors every year. It seems like that's becoming an annual thing. He's had to publicly respond to it multiple times. So at this point, go ahead and trade him. If it's really not working, if you're going to flirt with the idea of trading the man every year, go ahead and do it. Get a sizable return. Try and do right by him. Maybe work to get him to a location that he wants to be at, and go from there. I do think that could be reasonable for everyone involved, just because it seems like at this point, it seems like there's a narrative that the team is almost better off without him, and that they have a better defensive identity and stuff without him, which is not necessarily fair to him. Trae Young is always going to be chastised for his defense. Like, he's always going to have to deal with that because he's a smaller guard. But it is something that I think the Hawks do need to strongly consider. And at this point, if they do feel it's worth it, they just need to go ahead and go through with it, because where there's smoke, there's fire. And I know for a fact these rumors aren't just coming out of nowhere. They definitely are coming from the organization. The Hawks have definitely explored the idea of trading him. They have had to have done so, because it comes up just way too much, Phil. So I think they need to ask Santa for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to just wrap my head around the idea of Trae Young not playing in an Atlanta Hawks uniform.
Yeah,
I feel like that is
hard.
kind of, like the two parties were meant for each other. But like you said, I mean, Jalen Johnson is having quite the season. And I would honestly, at this point in time, kind of maybe be leaning a little bit more to having him as the face of the franchise, because he can do, I guess, more. I know Trae has had a lot of great moments, and he's an incredible shooter and passer. But you got to think, he is kind of a liability on the defensive side of the ball when he's not getting the ball. I mean, what does he really kind of bring to the offense besides maybe some additional attention? So again, that's not a bad idea. I would be curious to see where he might end up, or what the Hawks would be able to get from him. You'd have to think, you see some of these other guys get traded. Desmond Bane, he was able to get for the Grizzlies some 4 first-round picks and a couple of players. So, you got to think Trae Young kind of maybe on that upper echelon ahead of Desmond Bane. What could that return even look like?
Yeah, Trae Young is really talented. I think the market for him would be really unique in the fact that there are a handful of teams that you and I wouldn't even be able to think of right now that would consider trading for him.
Right.
I really do think that. And I think there are a handful of guys that teams may deem right now to be untouchable, or guys that they want to keep for the foreseeable future, who they would be more than willing to trade if Young became available.
Right.
So, it'll be interesting to see, but I think it's something they should consider putting at the top of their wish list for Christmas.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad one. My next team is the Phoenix Suns, and I decided that they need a bit of a time machine, a hot tub time machine even, maybe, and kind of going back to the 2023 season. They had just had that really dramatic loss to the Dallas Mavericks after blowing that lead in the playoffs. So, again, there was, everybody was saying, you guys just came back from the finals, you kind of took a step back, and Luka torched you guys, and everybody's talking about how bad the Suns are now, and blah 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 blah. So the team decided to just completely blow it all up, and they have not been back since. I mean, you got to think this team was on the precipice of winning the NBA Finals before Giannis kind of went nuclear and took over that finals series, and led the Bucks to a championship, kind of pushing Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. I mean, they had Mikal Bridges, they had Cameron Johnson, they had all these guys and a really great core. And even, again, that next year, they were even better in the regular season, and then they just ran into a buzzsaw that is Luka Doncic. I mean, that just happens sometimes. And instead of panicking like they did, trading off everybody, trying to get, they brought in KD, and I love Kevin Durant as much as the next guy. He is not better than having 5 guys that can get you at least 15 points a game. Yeah. Because that's what that starting lineup, those first 6 guys off the bench, that's what they were doing. They were at least providing that. KD would have to average 40 plus points to kind of make up for that. And I just never really saw that as the best way. I mean, it's definitely going to probably get more people into the stands having KD versus, some of these other guys. But at the same time, look what's happened to the Phoenix Suns now. Now you're looking at a Suns team that, sure, they're in the playoff race right now, but are they going to be at the end of the season? Does anybody think that this team could compete for a finals? I don't know where they would be if maybe they kept everybody, but I'm thinking about it right now. A team with Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, and even an aging Chris Paul. Maybe you replace him with somebody else and maybe have him come off the bench. Even then, I still think that's a better shot at winning a championship than whatever you're doing in Phoenix right now. So for Christmas, I think they should ask for a time machine.
Yeah, no, Phil. I mean,
Santa's got those just lying around.
Yeah,
probably.
oh yeah, for sure. Those are being made in the North Pole as we speak. You brought up some excellent points though. I think people forget how well positioned this team was at one point. Not too long ago, they were in a prime spot to not only compete for now but for the next decade, and they essentially mortgaged all that to win a championship now, and it backfired tremendously, and they've been reeling ever since, for being honest. And like you said, this is still a talented roster. At the end of the day, you still have Devin Booker, who is one of the best players in the league, but I mean, like you said, the ceiling is not too high for this roster right now with the way it's currently constructed. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent gift that the organization will be very grateful for, Phil.
Yeah, well, you got to think. I mean, since that finals run, they've gone through 4 coaches. They're on their 4th coach since then, and nobody even talks about that because the Suns again, just a few years ago, were in the finals, and now everybody I don't think it's really hit too many of us that they really have fallen off this far.
Well, they were. I think they were kind of in a position that the Bucks are kind of in right now, where you're trying to make your superstar happy, and you were just so close to you were still competing. You were still one of the teams, one of the few teams that was really in a position to win a championship, and you're just trying to, move these parts around, move this part around to hopefully get back to that. And before you know it, you look up and you're further from that than you have ever been.
Right. This is what the holidays are all about, right? Looking at everything with rose-colored glasses, trying to just, make the best of whatever situation you're in.
Oh, yeah.
All right, AJ, your last team on this holiday wish list.
Yeah, so, Phil, I got a little bit crazy with this one. My last team was the Brooklyn Nets. And going off of the time machine, I think the Nets need to ask Santa to move back to New Jersey. I do. I really do. I know.
It's gotten to that point, huh?
No, it's not only because of the... It's not because things are going bad right now, although that has helped. But no, I mean, when this franchise moved to Brooklyn, I think it was one of the biggest stories in sports. It was huge. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. Jay-Z, was talking about it in his songs, and Jay-Z was also a minority owner for a while before having to share his interest. But I feel like the Nets haven't had much of an identity since they've been in Brooklyn, really. And outside of the ill-fated trades for Darren Williams, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, it just hasn't worked. And it still feels like, similar to what we talked about with the Clippers earlier, they are in the shadow of the bigger team in town. And it didn't feel that way necessarily when they were in New Jersey. It did feel like they had their kind of own distinct identity. And I did feel like they were unique in that aspect. I know a lot of people probably would beg to differ, especially people from that generation. But I mean, I don't know if you remember, Phil, when Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson, Kenyon Martin were playing for the Nets, they were a big deal. They were they were playing so many nationally televised games.
Back-to-back finals appearances.
Yeah, I mean, and they almost, I felt like, used the New York market to their advantage because they weren't in New York, but they were close enough to where everyone from New York was still giving them the same kind of attention. And I thought that made them one of the cooler stories in that time and one of the cooler teams of that era. And I just feel like now that they're in Brooklyn, it just seems like they're kind of rudderless. Like they don't have much of an identity right now. They play in a beautiful arena. The Barclays Center is spectacular, but not many people are coming to see them right now. And like I said, I think the Knicks also thriving has not made things any better. The Nets are at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and you could argue that things would be just as bad, if not worse, if they were in Jersey now. But I do think they had more of an identity then, and I do feel like if and when the wins start coming, like I said, they could use the market to their advantage and they would have their own unique situation rather than just being the other team across town, which is what the Clippers have been, even when they've been successful, Phil.
Well, I mean, even looking at the Nets, I mean, New Jersey, even if they just moved there, even if maybe things were the same team, same winning percentage or whatever, you got to think that's the hottest ticket in town in New Jersey, probably. In New York, I would say the Nets are probably the 4th best basketball team in New York right now, because you got the Knicks, got the New York Liberty, of course, in the WNBA, and then St. John's. They play at Madison Square Garden. I would much rather go see Rick Pitino and the Red Storm, take on anybody in the Big East right now than maybe go see Michael Porter Jr. and the Brooklyn Nets do whatever they're trying to do. So again, you got to just I like that move actually. I never liked them leaving Jersey in the first place. It was like cool and flashy at the time, but again, I think you have a team with a lot of history that the New Jersey Nets had, and kind of just are like, all right, well, let's just move them to Brooklyn because it'll be easier. You know, we can attract more fans, I guess, from New York. But again, you're battling with other things in New York right now. Like the fact that the Knicks sell out every night is always crazy to me because, you know, if you go to New York City, I mean, there's a million things to check out. And the fact that they're still able to do it, again, I think they could be their own New York City if they were in New Jersey a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's what I'm saying, Phil. I really do think it could be a wonderful move for everyone involved. And like I said, I think you're still close enough to have the market and to use it to your advantage. People are still going to come and watch you play, but you have your own state, you have your own arena, your own identity. You're not in the shadow of anyone else. You're in your own state, for crying out loud.
Right.
And yeah, like you said, Phil, I was never against them leaving in the first place, but it's been painful to see. And also, too, it's been really sad to see, I think, a generation of fans go without their respective team. I've always said I've never liked the idea of a team leaving anywhere. I don't feel like a city should gain a team while another city loses another. If you want to put an expansion franchise somewhere, do that. But it makes me so mad to see like how the economics of sports leagues leaves so many fans without their respective teams. And there are a bunch of people in Jersey who went to games and who were season ticket holders, generations worth of fans who don't get that now. And some people may argue, oh, well, Brooklyn's close enough, but it's not the same, though. No. There's a big difference between driving 15 minutes to an arena and sitting in God knows how many hours of traffic trying to go to a Nets game.
Definitely. Yeah, no. Again, I'm in favor of that move. I think, Santa, if you're listening, that should be if you're going to take any of these wishes, take that one for sure. My last team, though, again, kind of went a little bit crazier. I kind of tried to stagger them a little bit. This is one that I'm really proud of because I think that the Washington Wizards, that's my team, I think that they desperately would love for this to happen. It would be a Christmas miracle, so to speak, if it were to happen. And that would be relegation down to the G League, the NBA G League. Look, the Wizards, I don't think we've talked about them yet on this show, and that goes to show just how bad they are. They are 4-20. They're one of the worst teams in the league, but it's not even that they're bad. It's that they're irrelevant. The irrelevancy behind, again, Washington, D.C. is one of only a handful of cities to have 4 major sports teams there. And nobody is paying attention to the Wizards. Nobody wants to pay attention to the Wizards because they're bad. And they have, could you name their starting 5? Could you name 2 players on the Washington Wizards right now? Anybody? AJ, you yourself. Can you think of?
I can name 2. CJ McCollum and Alex Sarr. They both play. Yeah. I could not name their starting 5.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, there's so many things about this Wizards team that is just so unknown, and again, it's to the point where people aren't even trying to maybe break down like, oh, well, if the Wizards did this, or maybe if they made this move, or, trade for this guy, or maybe focus on developing these certain guys to do these certain things. It's not even like that. Everybody is just kind of collectively agreed that, okay, if you're looking to maybe dump an aging, expiring contract, send them to Washington. They'll send you a draft pick. I feel like that's kind of what they've become. So why not get relegated down to the G League, be a competitive G League team, probably win the G League, and then, again, have an NBA affiliate that you could kind of send some other guys up and, help that out. When the Denver Nuggets won the NBA Finals, they give a lot of credit to the Grand Rapids Gold because they had a couple of two-way guys, and then, of course, all their draft picks and players that they want to, maintain ownership of, they're all here in Grand Rapids. So, again, the G League team does get some credit for NBA Finals wins. I think that might work for Washington.
Yeah, you think so?
I think so. It's better than whatever they're doing right now, right?
Yeah. No, Phil, I think you might have a point. It's that we've talked about some directionless franchises before, but they're definitely high up there.